family, friends and colleagues of Jim Grant. The congregation of those who honor the memory of Jim Grant is many times larger than we who are gathered here. Millions in spirit swell this congregation because their lives were touched by him. Above all, the millions of children. The children who would have been sick and malnourished, but who are growing up healthy. The children who would have been blind, who can see. The children who would have been paralyzed and can walk. The children who would have been retarded, who are growing up bright and alert. And the millions of children who would not be growing up at all were it not for the life and the work of this extraordinary man. I see here today many of the wonderful colleagues who made these achievements possible. For most of us, it will be the proudest boast of our working lives to be able to say that we worked with Jim Grant in the 1980s and 90s. I want to say a few words about Jim Grant's vision. It was a vision born of a great humanitarian intellect. Few had his command of complexity. Even fewer had his command of simplicity. Few saw the sufferings and the setbacks of this world as often or as close up as Jim did. But very few had such faith in progress. Few saw so much of the human capacity for callousness and cruelty. But few had his unshakable faith in the human capacity for doing good. He witnessed the worst. He looked for the best. He saw the evil and the pain, and he said, "This is not all." Above all, we all knew Jim as a man who wanted to get things done, preferably by tomorrow morning, and at the very latest by the end of 1995. Yet, his vision was rooted deep in history, and it looked to a future which he knew he would not see. Especially in recent years, he sought to communicate his vision of human progress, a progress that he felt was becoming invisible to younger generations, progress that he felt was becoming obscured by ever more powerful means of reporting only the immediate. Jim Grant believed that the very essence of progress was the transition from a world organized for the benefit of the few to a world organized for the benefit of the many. He would often recall his own childhood in China, and he was deeply moved by how normal it seemed then that power and privilege and the advantages of progress should belong to so few, and how unnatural that seems today. In the last chapter of his last State of the World's Children report, he set out his views on how profoundly the world has begun to change in our times, and his belief that humanity has made more progress in this century than in all of previous history. He lifted our gaze from the headlines to the horizon, and he taught us to draw hope from the well of our history. This is why Jim saw the meeting of basic human needs as the great unfinished business of the 20th century. He saw that change in capacity had made possible a world in which every man, woman, and child could have adequate food, clean water, decent shelter, modern health care, and basic education. And he said, morality must march with that capacity. This was his vision, and no man in this century has done more to make that vision into a reality. Jim Grant's vision did not end at basic needs, and it did not end in the year 2000. For the next century, too, he had his dream. As far as I know, he never wrote about it. He spoke of it only rarely, for he knew it was an idea whose time had not yet come. The shorthand name he gave to that vision was equity. This century's struggle, he would say, is to meet basic needs. The struggle of the next century will be for equity. As always, Jim knew the complexities, but he would have nothing to do with the idea that all people have equal opportunity and are equally capable of pulling themselves up by their own bootstraps. Out of the depths of his human decency, he knew this for the narrow and ultimately bankrupt philosophy that it is. And out of those same depths of decency came a vision of another society, a society which would truly bend its efforts to honoring and supporting all of its members, a society in which solidarity would prevail over self-interest, a society in which empathy would overcome alienation, a society in which the opportunities of life would not be so heavily circumscribed by the circumstances of birth. It is the noblest of visions, and one day its time will come. Jim leaves behind a fine family, and it's been a joy amid the sadness to see him in them. By them and by us, Jim will be missed, and missed so much, not just for what he did, but for who he was. All my life, I will remember the times we have been privileged to share with him, the times of courage and the times of kindness, the times of great seriousness and the times of such great good humor. Above all, I will remember his boundless generosity of spirit. There was no better leader, no better friend, no better man.
Send them your heart so they'll know that someone cares, and their lives will be healthy and free, as God has shown us when he turned stone to bread. So we must all lend a helping hand.